1941, a two-room house on the back slope of Laurel Fork, deep in the hill country of eastern Tennessee. Mabel Pruitt had buried her husband the winter before a sawmill accident, and she was raising 3 kids on what the older boy brought home hauling timber 3 days a week. That came to about $4.60 most weeks, sometimes less. The kitchen was a plank floor and a cast iron stove she fed with split red oak. On the shelf above the stove, she kept a tin of lard, a sack of cornmeal, a jar of dried beans, and a half-empty bottle of sorghum she rationed like it was medicine. She cooked in the same pot her mother had given her. It was black on the outside and smooth on the inside from 20 years of use. And every evening, no matter what was in that tin and that sack and that jar, something came out of that kitchen that her kids sat down to eat. She never once called it poverty. She called it supper. If you are living alone tonight and the grocery bill has gotten uncomfortable and you are trying to figure out how a person is supposed to eat well on a fixed income, I need you to hear what women like Mabel knew, because they already answered the question you are asking yourself right now. They did not have a cooking show. They did not have a budget app. They had a cold shelf and a hot stove and about 40 years of hard-learned knowledge that nobody thought to write down, except my grandfather Emmett did. And I have got that book. But here is a twist. The tricks that kept those families fed, the small moves that stretched $1 into a week of real meals, they were not primitive. They were not desperate guesswork. The Department of Agriculture was studying rural households in that era. And what they found was that the women running those kitchens were doing things that modern food science would later spend decades trying to explain. They were building flavor where there was nothing to build with. They were making food last longer without electricity. They were feeding 4 people on what a fast food combo costs today. And somewhere between the 50s and the 70s, the processed food industry made sure you forgot every single one of those tricks. Because if you knew them, you would not need what they were selling. My name is Ruth Tolliver. I am 58 years old. My family has been on the Cumberland Plateau in eastern Kentucky since 1788, and we have not left. My grandfather, Emmett Tolliver, kept a ledger from 1931 to 1979. Black cover, water-stained corners. The front pages are household accounts, what everything costs, down to the penny. The margins and the back pages are something else. Emmett wrote down how every dish was made, what it cost to make it, and where it came from. But Emmett was not the cook. The women of that house were the cooks. He just kept the numbers, and he wrote the recipes and the margins because he wanted to know what each meal actually cost. He made me swear that book would not die with him. I have got 40 years of margins I have not opened yet. 2 things before we get into this. Number 18 on this list costs less than $1.50 to make, start to finish, and it will feed you for 2 days. And number 9 was invented by a widow who could not stand long enough to cook 2 separate dishes, so she figured out how to make one pot do everything. Remember those 2. We are going to get there. Now we are counting down, and we start at the bottom and work toward the one that matters most. The one I am going to save for last is not the most famous trick on this list. It is the one that separates the people who eat well on almost nothing from the people who do not. I will tell you when we are getting close. Number 20, saving the pot liquor. This is where most people throw away the most valuable thing in the kitchen. Pot liquor is the liquid left in the bottom of the pot after you cook beans, greens, or any long-simmered vegetable. Mabel Pruitt never poured it down the drain. She kept a jar on the stove, and she added to it all week. That liquid is loaded with everything that cooked out of those vegetables, and it was the base of half her meals. A cup of pot liquor, a handful of cornmeal, stirred in, slow, a pinch of salt, and you have got something that costs almost nothing and tastes like it took all day. Back then, this cost maybe 2 cents to make from scraps. Today, a can of broth at the store runs close to $3. The jar on the stove cost you nothing. The industry that sold you broth in a can needed you to forget this existed. You are not forgetting anymore. Number 19. Keeping the grease. After you fry anything, bacon, salt, pork, even a pork chop, there is a layer of rendered fat left in the pan. Mabel kept a coffee can next to the stove. Every bit of that fat went into the can. It was her cooking oil, her flavor base, and her bread spread, all in one. A pound of bacon in 1941 ran about 32 cents, and the grease it left behind was used in 6 more meals after that. Today, a small can of cooking spray costs around $4. A pound of bacon still leaves you a quarter cup of grease that most people pour out. Keep the can, keep the grease. Every scratch biscuit in that part of the country was made with it. Number 18. Stretch cornbread. 1 cup of cornmeal, a quarter cup of flour, 1 egg, 2 tablespoons of saved grease, a cup of buttermilk, a pinch of salt, and a half teaspoon of baking soda. That is it. Pour it into a hot cast iron skillet with a thin coat of grease already in the bottom. It comes out with a crust on the underside that crackles when you tap it, and a soft, dense center that is still warm when you cut it 20 minutes later. Total costs in 1941 was around 8 cents for a full skillet. Today, those same ingredients run you under $1.50. The cornbread mix in a box costs more and has 12 ingredients you cannot pronounce. Make the real one. Number 17. The cold water dough trick. When you are making biscuits or dumplings and you want them to come out light instead of dense, use cold water or cold buttermilk and work the dough as little as your hands will let you. The women in that hollow knew this without being told why. They knew that the less you worked it, the better it rose, and the longer it held when wrapped in a cloth. A batch of dumplings made this way would stretch a pot of broth into 2 full meals. Emma Sledger has a note in the margin next to this one that just says, "Do not overwork it, she knows." He meant his wife. She had been doing it that way since before he met her. Number 16. The dried bean method. Done right. Dried beans are the longest running budget meal in American history, but most people cook them wrong and end up with something that tastes like paste. The trick is a long cold soak, at least 12 hours, then a slow cook with aromatics from the start, not added later. A half pound of dried pinto beans, a small onion quartered, 2 cloves of garlic left whole, and a piece of salt pork about the size of 2 fingers. Cover with water by 2 inches. Cook low for 3 hours without letting it boil hard. Salt only at the end. What you get is a pot of beans with a thick, creamy broth that is its own gravy. In 1940, a half pound of pintos cost about 4 cents. Today, that same bag runs under $2 and feeds 4 people, or feeds 1 person 4 times. The salt pork adds another $1 at most. Number 15. Now the first pattern break, friend. From number 15 down, we are not talking about stretching a grocery budget. We are talking about what went on the table when the budget was already gone. Number 15. Water gravy. 2 tablespoons of saved grease in a cold pan, heat it slow. Whisk in 2 tablespoons of flour and keep moving it until it turns the color of a brown paper bag. Then pour in 1 cup of water slowly, still whisking, and let it thicken. Salt and black pepper. That is the whole thing. Poured over a split biscuit. This was breakfast for a family that had nothing else that morning. The taste is not fancy. It is deep and savory, and it fills you in the way that nothing from a packet does. Cost in 1935 was under 2 cents. Today the ingredients cost less than 50 cents. The biscuit mix companies that replaced this charged 10 times that and made something that does not taste half as good. Number 14. Fried mush. Cornmeal mush is cornmeal cooked slow in salted water until it is thick enough to hold a spoon upright. The trick Emmett wrote down is what happens the next morning. You pour the leftover mush into a pan, smooth it flat, and let it cool overnight. By morning, it has set hard enough to slice. You cut it into half-inch slabs and fry each one in a little saved grease until both sides are crisp and golden. The inside stays soft. The outside cracks when you bite it. Served with a spoon of sorghum, this was a full breakfast that cost 3 cents in 1938. Today, cornmeal is about $1.20 a pound, and 1 pound makes enough mush for 4 mornings of fried slices. Nothing from a cereal box comes close to this for the price or the staying power. Number 13, the soup bone and what it actually gives you. A soup bone from the butcher, back when you could walk in and ask for one, cost almost nothing because nobody wanted it. In the 1940s, a large beef soup bone ran about 5 to 10 cents. Today, a good marrow bone or knuckle bone at a butcher runs $1 to $3, which is still the best deal in the meat case. You put it in a pot with cold water, bring it up slow, skim the foam, then add whatever vegetable scraps you have been saving in a jar in the cold. Onion skins, carrot ends, celery tops, the dark outer leaves of cabbage. Simmer that for 2 to 3 hours. What you have is a broth that is rich and dark and makes the whole house smell like something important is happening. That broth is the base of 3 more meals. The bone costs you almost nothing. The scraps cost you nothing. The heat costs a little. That is it. Number 12, saving your vegetable scraps. This connects directly to the soup bone, but it stands alone as its own trick. A wide-mouthed jar kept in the coldest part of your kitchen or your refrigerator today, and every trimming goes in. Onion ends, potato peelings if they are clean, the tops of carrots, the dark outer leaves of greens, the stems of herbs. By the end of a week, you have enough to make a quart of vegetable broth from nothing. The Department of Agriculture was encouraging households to do this during the war years as part of kitchen conservation programs. It was not a poverty habit, it was considered smart housekeeping. The habit disappeared when companies started selling broth in cans and cartons and convinced people their time was too valuable for this. Your time is not too valuable, and a quart of real broth from your own scraps costs you nothing but the gas or electricity to heat it. Number 11, the half and half flour trick for biscuits. When white flour was scarce or expensive, the women in those hill kitchens cut it half and half with cornmeal. The result is a biscuit that is denser and a little more crumbly than a pure flour biscuit, but it has a flavor that plain white biscuits do not have. Something nutty and warm, and it holds together better when you use it to soak up broth. Emmett's note next to this one reads, made 11 cents of flour into 22 cents of biscuits. He meant the half and half stretch made the batch go twice as far for the same money. Same is true today. A bag of all-purpose flour and a bag of cornmeal used this way doubles your biscuit yield for the same dollar spent. Number 10, the skillet as oven. Before many of these households had a proper oven, or when the wood stove was burning low and they could not afford to feed it more, the cast iron skillet on the stovetop became the oven. You set the lid on tight, put the skillet on the lowest heat you could manage, and let the trapped heat cook whatever was inside from all sides. Biscuits, cornbread, even a simple cake. The bottom got more heat than the top, so everything came out with a hard crust on the bottom and a soft top, which was exactly what those biscuits needed. The skillet cost nothing extra to use. The oven, when they had one, cost wood or coal or gas. Knowing how to use the skillet as an oven meant you could save that fuel for colder nights. Today, your gas or electric oven costs real money to run. A cast iron skillet on a low burner costs a fraction of that. Here is your first task for this week, neighbor. Go to the store and buy a pound of dried pinto beans and a small piece of salt pork. That is your grocery task. When you get home, put the beans in a bowl, cover them with cold water, and leave them until tomorrow morning. That is all you have to do today. Tomorrow, we will cook them. The whole meal will cost you under $3 and feed you twice. Number 9, the one-pot everything, for when you cannot stand long enough to make 2 dishes. This is the one I told you about. A widow named Cora Fitch, who lived in a holler outside a small settlement in the hill country of western North Carolina, had bad knees by the time she was 50 and could not be on her feet for more than 20 minutes at a time. So she figured out how to make everything happen in one pot and in one uninterrupted stretch of standing. She put her beans on first. When they were halfway done, she dropped her cornmeal dumplings right into the bean pot, just a simple dough of cornmeal, little saved grease, salt, and enough water to hold it together, rolled into balls about the size of a walnut, and dropped in one at a time. The dumplings cooked in the bean broth and soaked up the flavor of the salt pork and the onion. By the time she sat back down, the whole meal was done. One pot, one fire, 20 minutes of standing. The dumplings cost under 5 cents in 1943. The whole pot fed her and 2 grandchildren for less than 30 cents. Today, the same pot costs about $2.50. Number 8. Lard as a preserving coat. Now the second pattern break, friend. What comes next is not about cooking. It is about making what you bought last longer than the store expects it to. Before refrigeration was reliable in rural homes, lard was used to coat and preserve certain foods for short-term storage. A piece of cornbread wrapped in a thin coat of lard and kept in a cool place would stay good for several days longer than bread stored unwrapped. Mabel Pruitt did this with her skillet bread every week without fail. This is a cool storage method, meaning it depends on your storage being genuinely cold below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are trying this today, keep it refrigerated, not just in a cool room, and consume it within 3 to 4 days. It will not replace modern refrigeration, but for a quick weekend bread that you want to keep through the week, it still works and costs you nothing beyond the small amount of lard you already have in the pan. Number 7, the cracklings lesson. When you render lard from fatback, which is something fewer people do today but was standard practice through most of the last century, what is left in the bottom of the pot after the fat has cooked out is a pile of small, crisp, golden cracklings. These are not a byproduct, they are the point. Emmett's ledger shows the cost of a pound of fatback in 1944 was 12 cents. It produced about a cup of rendered lard and a full cup of cracklings. The lard went into the tin on the shelf. The cracklings went into the next batch of cornbread, stirred right into the batter. The result is a cornbread with a savory, rich depth that you cannot replicate any other way. The price of everything you need today is under $4, and you get both the lard and the cracklings from one purchase. Number 6, stretching an egg. When eggs were short, which they often were in winter, a single egg could be stretched to bind or enrich a batter that normally called for 2 or 3. The trick was in how you used it. You cracked the egg into a small bowl, beat it well, then used only half in the batter and reserved the other half for a glaze or a thin scramble on the side. A dish that called for 2 eggs could be made with 1 if you beat it well enough and added a tablespoon of the saved grease to replicate the fat that the second egg would have contributed. Today, eggs have gone up considerably at the store. This trick is more relevant now than it has been in decades. And here is your second task for this week. Next time you make cornbread or biscuits, cook a double batch. Eat half tonight. Wrap the other half in a cloth or a sealed container and put it in the coldest part of your refrigerator. It will be ready for breakfast tomorrow with nothing more needed than a few minutes in a warm skillet. Number 5. Sorghum as a flavor builder, not just a sweetener. Sorghum syrup, which was a common sweetener in Appalachian and upland southern kitchens through most of the early 20th century, does something that sugar and corn syrup do not. It adds a mineral, almost smoky depth to whatever you put it in. A tablespoon stirred into a pot of beans in the last 30 minutes of cooking changes the whole character of the broth. A teaspoon in the cornbread batter gives the crumb a complexity that plain sugar never produces. It was cheap because it was local. Every county in that region had a sorghum mill. The extension services in those states still publish information on sorghum cultivation and traditional use. Today, a jar of real sorghum from a farm supplier runs about $6 to $8 and lasts for months. It is not the same as molasses, which is sweeter and thinner. Do not substitute. Find the real thing. Number 4, the flour sack. For decades, flour came in cotton sacks. The fabric was good cotton, tightly woven, and the women of those households used every inch of it. Dish towels, children's clothes, curtains, wrapping cloths for bread and meat. This is not a cooking trick, strictly, but it is a kitchen trick. Nothing was wasted. The sack that held the flour became the cloth that wrapped the bread that was made from that flour. There was a completeness to it that the modern kitchen does not have. Today, a good cotton flour sack towel from a farm supply store costs about $2 and will last 20 years. The habit of wrapping your bread in cloth instead of plastic keeps it from going stale as fast because the cloth lets it breathe without drying it out. Number 3, the slow simmer over the low fire. We are almost there, neighbor. I told you I would let you know when we were close. The single most common instruction in Emmett's margin notes is this: low and slow. Not medium, not a rolling boil, a bare simmer where you can see the surface move but not break. Every tough cut of meat, every dried bean, every pot of greens cooked this way becomes something else entirely. The reason is that the long, gentle heat breaks down what a fast boil cannot. A fast boil makes beans fall apart on the outside and stay hard in the middle. A slow simmer makes them cook through evenly and hold their shape while the broth thickens on its own. In 1935, you managed this by banking the fire and leaving the pot on the back of the stove all afternoon. Today, you manage it by turning the burner to its lowest setting and not touching it. The cost is the same either way. The difference in the result is not small. Number 2, reading what you have and building backward. Every woman in that kitchen started the meal from the same place. Not from a recipe, from an inventory. What is in the tin? What is on the shelf? What is in the pot from yesterday? And then she built backward from there to something edible and warm. Emmett has a note that reads, "She never starts with what she wants to make. She starts with what is already here." This is a skill that the modern kitchen has almost entirely lost because the modern kitchen is built around the idea that you go to the store first and then cook. Flipping that, starting with what you have and finding what it can become, is the skill that made those meals possible. It is also the skill that cuts your grocery bill the hardest, because you stop buying things you do not use and start using everything you buy. And now the trick I have been holding back. Number 1, the trick of making it look like a meal. This is the one that matters most and gets talked about least. It is not an ingredient, it is not a method, it is a decision. Mabel Pruitt and Cora Fitch and every woman who fed a family on $4.60 a week made a choice about how the food left the kitchen. She put it on a plate, she set it on the table, she sat down. She did not eat standing at the stove because there was not enough to matter. She made it matter by how she treated it. The meal was small, but it was served. The table was bare, but there was a place set. That decision to eat like a person and not like someone waiting for things to get better is what kept those families from breaking. It is not sentimental. It is structural. The ritual of sitting down to something you made, no matter how simple, is what makes the food mean something. It is the difference between feeding yourself and taking care of yourself. And that difference, friend, is worth more than any ingredient on this list. Here is my challenge to you. Make one of these this week. Just one. The fried mush, the one-pot beans and dumplings, the stretched cornbread, and when it is done, do not take it to the couch. Set a place at the table, sit down, eat it slow. These meals were never about being cheap. They were about staying whole when the world made it easy to stop trying. The women who cooked them were not surviving. They were deciding every single evening that they and their families were still worth a real meal. I made water gravy on a Tuesday morning not long ago. Just me and that cold pan and the coffee can of saved grease on the back of the stove. I stood there looking at the plate and thought about how a woman with nothing but flour and grease and water had made something that filled the kitchen with a smell worth getting up for. It was better than anything I had in the freezer, and it cost me less than 50 cents. Your grandmother cooked every one of these. Somebody just did not get the chance to hand them down to you. Now they are yours again. Tell me which one you are gonna make. I wanna know if the water gravy gets more people to the table than the one-pot beans. And if your family still makes any of these, tell me where you are from. I read every one. The trick that gets the most comments is the one I go through start to finish in the next video, every step, every amount, every minute on the stove. Next time, we pull out the 2-cent ingredient that kept the whole mountain county fed through the winter of 1936 and the decade when the grocery chains made sure it disappeared from every shelf in America. Keep what they knew. It'll